RC Modeler, July 1985. My article this month was on the 1985 Florida 112 electric and 1/8 gas Winter Champs in Orlando, Florida. The Florida Winter Champs was again held at the Orlando airport. In the background is a B-52 bomber which was donated to the city as an attraction. For 10 years, this annual race in Orlando, Florida has proven to be one of the most popular races with the racers from around the world. Originally, Kim Davis, the promoter of this event, intended to have an off-road race, a 1/12 race, and a 1/8 race during the 2-week-long event. But the new facilities were not ready in time, so the race was held at the Orlando airport location, same as last year. No off-road track was available, so it was postponed till next year. Terry Rott getting his RC 12i car ready. .112 electric. The activity started with the 1/12 scale electric Can-Am cars. The fastest drivers from all around the country were present, including 3 world champions, Tony Neisiger, Bud Bartos, and Arturo Carbonell. The track was cleaned and sugar water applied to the track, giving instant traction. The weather was perfect, which is one of the reasons so many racers from the northern states come to thaw out and race. We got there in time for 1 day of practice. Qualifying started the next day with 6 rounds scheduled. It was apparent that at least one guy came ready to race. On the first round, Tony Neisiger turned 33 laps in 8 minutes, 16.6 seconds. Closest to him was Randy Tenchert with 31.814. The next round, Tony did another 33 laps in 8:16.4. He was the only driver to run 33 laps in qualifying. Arturo Carbonell, using the same prototype car he used in Cleveland, took over second spot with 32.815, but the next round Rick Howard took it away with a 32.810. Bud Bartos got a 32.806 on his last run. Arturo lowered his time to 32.801 to retake the second spot. It looked like the main would be between Neisiger, Carbonell, and Howard, who had 4 32-lap qualifiers. The race was being efficiently run by Kim Davis, Rod Bauer, Bill Michaelitis, and Angel Diaz, all of whom did a super job thanks to the help of Bowlink's computer counting system. This lap counting system worked flawlessly all through the 1/12 and 1/8 program, allowing the racing to proceed without any delays, while giving a complete printed readout of every race. I think these guys deserve a great deal of thanks, using their vacation time to run a race for the rest of us. The A main. Time for the fast ones. The drivers were all introduced, pictures taken, and then the cars were lined up. The horn sounded, and the race was underway. Tony Neisiger and Mike Clenworth got to the first corner together, so Tony backed off, let Mike through, and then Tony passed Mike a couple corners later to take over the lead. Bartos then passed Mike to take over second. Rick Howard and Arturo both got a bad start, but it wasn't long before Howard had moved into third. Meanwhile, Neisiger was driving his usual perfect race, staying about 50 feet ahead of Bartos. Bartos was doing some super driving of his own, trying to keep Neisiger in sight. But the guy who was going the fastest on the track was Rick Howard. Lap by lap, he was getting closer and closer to Bartos. Then, with 1 minute to go, he got right on Bud's tail and tried to make a pass on the inside, but hit a dot and spun out, giving Bud some breathing room again. Tony went on to take the win, driving a line that was 1 inch off the dots, yet not once touching a dot. No one could have done better. Bartos finished 4 seconds behind in second, with Howard another 2 seconds behind in third. World champion Tony Neisiger adds another win and TQ to his long list. Congratulations, Tony. Way to go. Another world champion, Bud Bartos, took a well-deserved second place. Rick Howard keeps getting faster and faster and finished a strong third. It's unfortunate, but because my article covered 2 big races, there was only limited space available in the magazine, and I do not have the complete results to show you here. 1/8 Cask Can-Am. There was something new and unknown at this race. Roar had adopted a new 4-wheel drive class of cars in addition to the 2-wheel drive class. So at this race there were 95 2-wheel drive cars and 6 4-wheel drive cars. This was the first race ever here for the 4-wheel drive cars, so it will be interesting to see how they compared to the normal 2-wheel drive cars. Delta had made a completely whole new 4-wheel drive prototype car for Arturo Carbonell. They had run it a month earlier on this track and won the club race with it. Associated turned their existing RC500 into a 4-wheel drive car with the help of Rich Lee and Bill Newland. Rich, Curtis Husting, and Bill Giannis would be running one of these models, while Dana Smeltzer had made his own. The RC500 4-wheel drive car, as used by Curtis, Rich, and Giannis, looks almost like a stock RC500 2-wheel drive car. Check where the brake cam is and the pulley by the front bulkhead. Something else that was different was that most of this associated team was using OPS motors, and an equally big surprise was that Arturo bought an OPS engine from Ron Paris, which he ran instead of his Picos. There's so many new good-looking engines around now that we thought it was time to give it a try. I built the OPS engines for Curtis, Giannis, Birch, and myself, while Rich Lee and Dana Smeltzer stayed with the K&Bs. I did an engine test between the Paris modified K&Bs and the OPS engines. This is a comparison of the current Paris K&B engines to the latest OPS version. As you can see, Steve O'Donnell's muffler was used for this test. The top speed 6.4 props showed 28,500 RPM. The good means the tachometer needle is holding relatively steady, which is very important. The next test was using a different Rossi dropped and shortened header pipe with a 1/4 inch spacer. As you can see, the 6.4 RPM jumped up to 29,600 versus 28,500, and the tack was rock solid. This is as good as it gets with K&Bs at this time. This is the results from a stock new OPS, except for some head chamber modifications. A McCoy manifold was used and shortened, 600 thousandths, and Steve's muffler was used. 3A fuel means I was using a special 30% nitro blend fuel that I was making for our A team out of a special synthetic jet military oil I got from Wally Bailey in England. This fuel was awesome. The engines simply did not overheat or wear out. They seemingly lasted forever. As you can see, the 7.4 RPM went up to 31,600 from the K&B's 29,600. That's a big jump, considering I had not done any porting or polishing or modifying yet. But there were two other things that were incredibly better than the K&B's. First, you could prop test the OPS, then completely disassemble it, and then put it back together again, and you would get exactly the same test RPM readings as you got the first time, which means that any modifications you did to the engine, you could positively know whether you helped the engine or not with the modification you did. This was because the heat expansion rate of the OPS engine's crankcase, sleeve, and piston all expanded on running equally, as well as contracting evenly when cooled down. This was not so with the K&B. With the K&B, you could take the engine apart, modify it, reassemble it, but you could never again take it apart and reassemble it without losing 20% of its power. This is no good for modifying engines. You have to be able to take them apart a number of times to test and retest to know if your modifications are working. As great as the basic OPS engine was, the carburetor by itself was totally incredible compared to the K&B. I was using the OPS carb on my K&B engines for the last 2 years. They're so easy to adjust and they maintain their settings. But the carb shows its ability even more on the new OPS engines. There is such a wide range of acceptable fuel adjustment during idling as well as wide open. It's truly fantastic. The Italians have taken over the market, much to their credit. Two-wheel drive qualifying. With the help of the Bolink lap counting system and the perfect weather in February, it was possible for us to run 9 rounds of qualifying. It was great. In the first round of qualifying, it was a little, or more like a lot, hard to believe, but I actually had the best time with 16 laps in 5.09.6. I remember I was shaking so hard I thought the driver's stand would collapse. But at the age of 58, I guess I'm entitled to a little shaking. I also guess the shaking means it's still exciting, so it's okay. Dana Smeltzer was the only other driver with 16 laps at 5:12. Birch finally set the top qualifier time in the 8th round with 17:505. Closest to him was Gil Ossie Jr. with 17:515, and then Dana Smeltzer with 17:516. Butch Berry and I both missed 17 laps by 2 seconds with times of 16:502. Four-wheel drive qualifying. In the four-wheel drive class, Curtis Husting won the first round with 17 laps in 5.13. Giannis followed with 16:511 and Arturo with 16:515. In the next round, Ralph Birch started going with 17:514. We kept Ralph in the two-wheel drive class so we'd have a better comparison between the two-wheel and the four-wheel drive cars. Ron Paris followed with a 16:50 and I had another 16:509. Arturo lowered the four-wheel drive class to 17:506 in the next round, with Giannis 2 seconds behind at 17:508. In the four-wheel drive class, Curtis Husting had taken over the top spot with a time of 17:503 in the 4th round. It looked like this time was going to hold up. But then in the last round, Bill Giannis on the right took top qualifying honors with a 17.501. Giannis's time was just 4 seconds faster than Birch's time, and that's what we needed to know. We could keep up with Birch now if he ran a two-wheel drive and we ran a four-wheel drive. That means the four-wheel drive car was definitely faster. Two-wheel drive A main. After the photos and introductions, the cars were lined up, and at the sound of the horn, Ralph Birch Jr. was off in the lead, to the surprise of no one. Gil Ossie Jr. and Dana Smeltzer were racing for second, while I was cruising along in fourth. About the second pit stop, Dana started having radio problems and finally lost the radio completely and lost the car. Birch continued on in first place all by himself. Gil Ossie Jr. was in second place, with myself a distant third. But there were 4 cars all on the same lap, having a close, exciting race for fourth place. John Hodgson led this pack home to take fourth, with Butch Berry fifth, Rich Potempa sixth, and Ron Paris seventh, all on the same lap. The only time I can remember this man losing a race is when the car has had problems, which has been very seldom. Ralph Birch Jr. makes winning look oh so easy. Congratulations, Ralph. Gil Ossie Jr. is probably more famous in off-road racing, but he can also race with the best of gas racers, as he took a second place here. Way to go, Gil. Sometimes even I get a turn with a third place finish. At the age of 58, not too bad. I'll take it. Four-wheel drive, A main. There were only 6 cars in this class, but it was still destined to be a good race. These were the fastest of the fast cars. At the horn, it was Dana Smeltzer through the first corner first, with Curtis Husting right on his bumper. Curtis was pressing Dana, so Dana moved over and let Curtis take the lead, with Dana close behind. Art was following in third, with Rich fourth. Giannis had changed the right height of his front end before the race, and his car wasn't handling the same as in qualifying. The position stayed this way for about 4 minutes when Dana had radio problems again and lost his other car while running in second. Curtis's car was handling the best at the beginning of the race. He had started on standard-sized tires, planning to change rear tires during the race if necessary. Art started on larger than normal tires with no tire change planned. Curtis now had about a straightaway lead over Art in second, with Rich quite a ways back in third. Curtis came up to lap Giannis, who was having his problems, and the 2 cars tangled, with Curtis spinning out and Art closing up behind. Curtis and Art were now together on the track, with Giannis in between them. Art caught Giannis on the straightaway, and they bumped in the corner, rolling Art over, but he landed back on his tires and was still right with Curtis. Curtis turned in the 2 fastest laps of the race at 17.4, but Art was right there with 3 laps at 17.5. Art got past Curtis midway through the race, but a few laps later, Curtis retook the lead. It was that kind of a race. But towards the end of the race, Curtis's rear tires were getting quite small, and Art's were now getting closer to normal size. Art retook the lead and pulled away to a straightaway lead at the end. Art said he really enjoyed the race, the win naturally, but more so the good close racing which he hadn't had lately. He said his heart hasn't pounded like that for a while. I know what he means. All Curtis could say was, "That's 3 years in a row I got second." He's overdue. Rich Lee finished third. Arturo Carbonell won a close, exciting four-wheel drive race. Congratulations, Art. Curtis Husting kept the pressure on, but he ran out of tires at the end and had to settle for a close second place. Curtis finished in second 3 years in a row. He's overdue for a win. Rich Lee took a well-deserved third place. Way to go, Rich. This is a Reedy Modifieds ad showing on the left side 7 out of 11 Roar Modified National Championships winners. Art Carbonell, Curtis Husting, Rick Davis, Ken Clausen, Ralph Birch Jr., Mike Lavico, and Jay Halsey. And on the right side, 1984 IFMAR Modified World Champion Tony Neisinger. TQ, Christian Kyle. 5 of the top 10 finalists used Reedy Modified Power. 4 out of 4 Winter Champs Modified Championships. 5 out of 5 U.S. Indoor Championships. A pretty powerful ad. And on the bottom, Reedy in a can. Reedy in a can. Power Spray. Reedy's new Power Spray was an instant winner because it actually did give the motors more power by lubricating the brushes and commutator, thereby giving more power and longer brush and comm life. Associated's new ad showing on the left Kent Clausen, top qualifier in the stock class, and in the middle Tony Neisinger, world champion, and on the right Christian Kyle as top qualifier. And on the left, at the Roar Off-Road Nationals, Jam and Jay Halsey won both stock and modified classes, with Gil Losey Jr. TQ in both classes, and finishing second in the stock class, with Tony Neisinger taking third and Curtis Husting in fourth. And on the right, Ralph Birch Jr. winning the GT and Can-Am classes at the 1984 1/8 Gas Nationals. This is the November 1985 issue of Roar's Rev Up magazine. On the top is John Walker's beautiful first place concourse winner, and on the bottom is Randy Tenshirt's beautiful candy apple concourse cars. You guys did both awesome. This is the map of the regions in Roar and a list of the Roar officials. This is the list of the Roar officials: President Joe Werner, Vice President Merle Gardner, Secretary Treasurer George Taylor, and Rev Up Editor Midge Husting. My wife Midge had volunteered to be Roar's Rev Up Editor. This is a voluntary job, meaning that it's a non-paying job, but it was something she wanted to do. It involved a ton of work, getting all of the columns from the regional directors, typing them up. Remember, there were no computers at this time. Then she got Roger to volunteer to print out the columns so she could then make up each page to be printed by the printer. When she started, there were about a dozen small ads in RevUp, all in black and white. She took it upon herself and on her own time to personally call manufacturers to solicit their advertising, saying things like, "These are the racers all across the country that buy RC car equipment. These are the people that you should be advertising to." In this particular case, I think she knew someone had associated too. The small ad on the left is for Motor Cipolla, and a full-page ad is from Leisure, showing their full range of chargers and a power supply. At the top right-hand is the J. Leah Hobby Distributor ad. The next ad is the Central Builders Hobby Division, the PB Car Distributor. The next full-page ad is Novak's, showing their new NESC1 and NESC4 and NESC2 speed controls. The next ad is The Adventures of Captain Hot Trick Buckaroo by Bilbo Incorporated. Whatever. The next ad on the left is from RC Racer, featuring their cool jackets modeled by Tony Neisinger and Gil Losi Jr. And on the right-hand side is Autographics ad of official car numbers of IFMAR. Midge is a good talker. On the left is a full-page ad of Kimbrough's RC Accessories products of all the things he makes besides gears. And on the right is Ron Paris Racing Engines ad for gas engines. It looks like there's a new RC model car magazine coming out. Great! We need more exposure. CRP has an overpowering ad of their off-road products and their new Serpent car distributorship. Eustace Moore's new MIP ad featuring a four-wheel drive conversion kit for the RC10 car. Way to go, Eustace! AYK's ad featured their 1/10 scale off-road Buffalo car. Reedy Modify's ad featured world champion Tony Neisinger and top qualifier Christian Kyle from Germany, and Reedy's new number 3514, the top motor where it belongs. Futaba's great ad with their radios and RC cars. Thank you again, Futaba. The full-page ad on the left is from Bolink, featuring their range of tires, and on the right is Advanced Turnings Mini-Mag wheel ad. And on the back cover is the MRC Tamiya ad for their new Frog car. Thank you, Midge, for helping to support our great hobby. We all appreciate it very much. I'd also like to thank all the great volunteers in all the clubs across the country who sacrifice their time so we all can enjoy our hobby. You're very special people. Without you, we wouldn't be racing. At the last Florida Gas Winter Champs in Orlando, Rick Davis, Rich Lee, and Dana Smeltzer all made prototype versions of an RC500 four-wheel drive car and ran them in the first ever four-wheel drive race here. They all worked, but I needed something that would easily fit our two-wheel drive RC500 car that was easy to install and easy to adjust and was reliable. So this is what I designed. We sold it as an extra add-on item for racers that already had an RC500 car and also a full four-wheel drive kit car. You can easily see the original RC500 two-wheel drive belt on the idler gear and going back onto the larger rear end gear. And then behind that you can see the four-wheel drive belt going towards the front of the car. Both of these belts were free running with minimal drag and super reliable, which was most important. Here you can see the belt drops down and goes underneath the radio tray. Note the 5 belt adjustment holes. Here you can see the belt coming out of the radio tray onto the front sprocket. Here you can see the top pulley where the belt drops down under the radio tray, and underneath you can see another pulley which keeps the belt down to avoid hitting the clutch bell. And the third pulley is used to adjust the tension on the belt. On either side of this pulley you can see 2 of the 5 adjustment holes. By selecting the proper hole, you can get the proper belt adjustment, which should not be too tight and not too loose. Here you can see the front sprocket with the outdrive going to the drive shaft that goes to the front wheel. This whole system proved to be very reliable. We finally got all the production parts for our new RC10 off-road car, and it was time for me to start on the instruction manual. I had to keep in mind that the majority of people buying the RC10 had either never built an RC car before or never built an off-road car before. The important thing to me was they must be able to assemble the car correctly, so the instructions must be easy to understand. There was also the consideration for our foreign distributors whose customers could not read English. But I knew they would be able to assemble the kit by photos only, which is exactly what happened. But our Japanese distributor Yokomo decided to rewrite the instructions for their customers in Japanese, a brilliant idea, and helped them to sell a lot more product. A very important part of the instructions. So we feel you have the best 1/10 scale off-road car available anywhere. You'll find the photos in the instructions are so easy to follow that many of you may be tempted to put the car together from the photos alone. However, although you have the best car kit, if you want the best completed model race car, then you will want to put it together correctly using these instructions. All that's required is to read the few lines of text across from each photo. Whatever you do, don't open up any of the parts bags until these instructions tell you. Otherwise, you'll get the parts mixed up, and then you will definitely be in trouble assembling your car. Here we're starting to assemble the gearbox. A good gearbox is super important to a car's handling performance. Keep in mind, Roger had to design and then draw up and dimension all these parts used in this kit. Remember too that this was before computers. We've got the diff completed and it's ready for attaching to the diff mounting plate. The completed diff assembly, and now we're mounting the shock tower onto the chassis. We've got the diff on the chassis, and now we're mounting the rear suspension arms. Now we're assembling the shocks. All these steps are important. The completed front end. There's 218 steps, but we're only going to be seeing a few of them here. We're mounting the radio equipment now. Installing the resistor. Assembling and installing the batteries. Mounting the tires. Mounting the body. See? This is your completed car. That wasn't so hard building it, was it? Actually, my son Curtis built this car, but these chrome wheels were added later. Here's your completed car. You did pretty good. Congratulations. Where's the girl? She must be lost in the fog. My article this month was on the cabin fever breakout race. The cabin fever breakout was sure an appropriate name to call this indoor off-road race in wintertime in Indianapolis. Roar President Joe Werner seems to love taking on tough jobs. He's hosted 1/8 Gas Nationals and 1/8 Gas World Championships in Indianapolis, and for his next endeavor, he was ready to stage a 1/10 off-road race indoors. He found a suitable building and built an off-road track inside using a combination of clay-dirt composition which he obtained from a recently held tractor pull contest. This clay-dirt combination was so tough that we ran on it for 3 days without any need for any track repair or maintenance. Somehow it did develop about 1,000,000 little potholes about the size of half a baseball, but they didn't affect the cars that much that they required repairing. This race was to be used as a qualifier for the upcoming World Championships to be held in Del Mar, California this summer. Because of the importance of this race, there were 129 entries from all around the country trying to qualify. Everyone making the A mains would have a chance to be qualified. The best in the country were here. 3 classes were run. Stock class required the use of stock Yokomo motors, which were supplied by Trinity and controlled by the race director. 2-wheel drive modified class, allowing the use of modified motors, and 4-wheel drive modified class. All qualifying and mains were 4 minutes long. Friday was open practice, and although it looked like a pretty simple course, it was anything but simple to drive. A lot of the guys who ran stock and 2-wheel drive modified classes stayed with their stock motors in both classes because the extra power of the modified motors was more than was actually needed on this track. Qualifying for the stock class was close, but Jay Halsey took top qualifier honors, turning 23 laps in 4 minutes and 23.01 seconds. Just a few seconds back was Gil Losi Jr. with 23.405, and Ralph Birch Jr. took third spot with 23.412. Open class qualifying was as close as it's possible to get. In a photo finish, it was Chris Alec taking TQ with 23.402, and an eyelash back was Gil Losi Jr. with 23.402, and then Gary Keyes at 23.403, less than 1 second separating the 3 cars. Chris Alec has a string of TQs going as he added another in the 4-wheel drive class with his much modified Hirobo car. The 2-wheel drive modified class surprised some people, I'm sure, as Ralph Birch Jr. in his first off-road race took TQ with a 23.406. Second spot went to Gil Losi Jr. with 22.402, and Jay Halsey took third with 22.403. Birch's RC10 is built just like the instructions show. Car features Futaba steering servo, Novak resistor servo and receiver, and Reedy motor. Notice cutoff knobs on the tires. It's interesting to note that on this track, the 2-wheel and 4-wheel drive cars were almost evenly matched. The fastest was actually the 2-wheel drive stock class at 23.401, with the open 4-wheel drive very close at 23.402. That means there wasn't that much traction, and it was a rough track surface. The stock A main. I don't know why, but it seems that every race Jay Halsey is in is an exciting race. and this one was no exception. Ralph Birch Jr. took off from his second row starting spot and grabbed the lead, with Jay Halsey right on his tail. A couple feet back, Curtis Husting was being chased by Gil Losey Jr. After about 5 laps, Halsey managed to squeeze by Birch, but a few laps later Birch retook the lead. Some of the time they were side by side around the track, not wanting to touch and cause an accident because Curtis and Gil were close behind, just waiting for a chance. Then with 3 laps to go, Halsey managed to retake the lead and hold it to the finish, with Birch just a couple feet back in second. Curtis managed to hold off Gil to take third, with Gil fourth. Great racing. Jam and Jay Halsey just keeps winning and winning. Way to go, Jam and Jay! Can you believe Ralph Birch Jr. in his first off-road race, he's racing it out for the win with Jam and Jay? You're incredible, Ralph. Curtis's RC-10 was box stock, just like all the other RC-10s in the race. Notice the position of the rear shocks on Curtis's car. Modified A main. This race was almost a repeat of the Roar Nationals main. Jay Halsey and Ralph Birch Jr. got tied up in the first corner traffic as Gil Losey Jr. managed to get through clean and open up about a 3/4 lap lead. Gil says it's really quite hard to have to readjust from the totally different driving style of the 4-wheel drive Yokomo to the 2-wheel drive RC-10, but he was doing it perfectly. Halsey managed to get clear first, but Birch was right on his rear bumper. They pushed each other faster and faster, and Halsey started getting closer and closer to Losey. Jay's car seemed to be taking the jumps a little better than Gil's, and when Jay got close behind, Gil tried to go that little bit faster over the jumps, but rolled over, and Jay took the lead and the win, with Gil second and Ralph third. This guy must think the 2-wheel drive class was made just for him. Jay Halsey won both classes at the Roar Nationals, added the Orca Nationals, won 6 races in a row in the 1985 Orca Series to win the championships, and then won both 2-wheel drive classes here with his RC-10. Way to go, Jay! Open A main. There was someone who wanted to win this race awful bad. At the sound of the horn, Gil Losey Jr., with his Yokomo 4-wheel drive car, was long gone. Nobody could keep up with him. I don't think I've ever seen Gil push a car quite this hard before. He was right on the ragged edge the whole race. He rolled the car once, but still managed to lap second place Gary Keyes, who was in a very close race with Chris Alec. A great deal of thanks must go to Joe Werner for all the hard work it takes to create an indoor off-road track, and to Bob Rule and Bob Emmett for volunteering to help run this race. Thank both you guys. You did great. RC Model Magazine, 1985. Wow, what a beautiful waterfall. My article this month was on the Futaba 112 Grand Prix and the 1/8 gas 10-hour Enduro. We'll cover some 112 electric racing and some 1/8 gas racing for you this month. The annual Futaba Grand Prix was held indoors this year at the Anaheim Convention Center. The race was part of the RG Canning Hot Rod and Custom Car Show. These shows are held every month in a different area of Southern California. Frank Killam has promoted a race series at these shows, with the final race being this Futaba Grand Prix. A great deal of thanks must go to Futaba for their continuing support of RC car racing, and to Frank Killam for all his hard work in running the races. There was a very good turnout for these races because of getting a chance to race on carpet for the first time in Southern California, as well as before huge crowds at the car shows. Frank Killam won the first race, with Tony Neisiger winning the next race, but Jerry Case was leading the point standings with a 3rd and 4th place finish, as well as the extra points from 2 top qualifier spots. Tony Neisiger started off where he left off by setting a time in the second round of 48 laps in 8 minutes and 0.9 seconds in qualifying. The talk in the pits was that it would be impossible to break Tony's time. They were right. The closest anyone came was Kent Clausen and Mike Glavico's almost identical times of 47, 8 minutes flat, 0.6, and 47, 8 minutes flat, 0.8. That's about as close as you can get. Neisiger's associated RC12i car is virtually stock, except for Lightning. Car features Futaba radio, really modified motor, and Sanyo batteries. It was really great to see the kind of exposure that was generated by RC car racing at this hot rod show. For 2 days of qualifying and another day of mains, there was always a crowd of people standing around the track while there was racing going on. It was the hit of the show. Thanks, Frank. The pit area was a little crowded, but not that bad. I can hear this conversation now. Clausen, on the right, is telling Lavico, "My car is so dialed in, nobody will be able to beat me. I'm going to smoke you, Lav." Lav just keeps working on his car, and then he says, "But first, you've got to catch me." Great fun. The A-main drivers ready to go. From the left, Tara Belair, Kent Clausen, Tony Neisiger, Robert Bartlett, Mike Lavico, Butch Burney, Fernando Belair, Rick Howard, Frank Killam, and Gil Losi Jr. Time for the A-main, the best of the best. And this was one of the best A-mains to watch that I've seen in a long time. The cars were lined up on the straightaway in the order of qualifying. At the sound of the horn, the field took off. Neisiger got spun out in the first corner, but Clausen got through in the lead, with Killam 6 inches behind in second, and Rick Howard next in third. Lavico moved up past Howard and Killam, and then at the 3-minute mark, Clausen just touched an inside board, and Lavico got by in the lead. Lavico held the lead for 4 laps, then got spun around while passing a slower car, and Clausen retook the lead. Meanwhile, Neisiger had been steadily moving up from the rear of the pack and was now in 4th. Clausen continued to drive perfectly, with Lavico only 10 feet behind, but unable to close in. Then, on the last lap, Kent Clausen's batteries dumped, and Mike Labico went by to take the win with Clausen second and Tony Neisiger now up to third, Rick Howard fourth, Gil Ossie Jr. fifth, Butch Burney sixth, with Robert Bartlett seventh. First 7 places ran associated cars with Reading Motors. 8th place was Tara Belair, Frank Killam ninth, and 10th Fernando Belair, also associated cars with Checkpoint Motors. Hey you guys, here comes the dessert, commonly known as the Trophy Girl. Labico appears to be grabbing the trophy rather than the dessert. Clausen says, "I'd rather have the dessert." Tony's just happy being here. Howard says, "I'll take mine and Tony's share. Some of these guys are getting to be very fast learners about some things." The 10-hour enduro at the Ranch Pit Shop, sponsored by Budweiser. All the thanks to Ron Paris for securing the sponsorship. The Pit Shop 10-hour enduro. From indoor electric racing to outdoor gas racing in a 10-hour enduro is 2 totally different worlds. I still don't quite understand what makes someone want to run in a 10-hour race, but there was more than enough volunteers. This was the 3rd annual 10-hour enduro, sponsored by Budweiser, and our thanks must go to them for their continued support. The team of Rich Lee, Curtis Husting, and Bill Giannis that have dominated the winning in 10, 12, and 24-hour enduros were not going to run in this enduro. Their 2-wheel drive RC500 cars were turned into 4-wheel drive cars for the winter champs, and they didn't want to use them in this enduro, so they were going to sit this race out. Then on Wednesday, before the race, they heard that Arturo Carbonell was already at the track practicing with his 4-wheel drive Eagle car for the race. That did it. There's something about the prospect of a good race that gets a racer's enthusiasm going. Thursday and Friday night, they rebuilt last year's enduro winning car. I supplied one of the OPS motors we used at the Winter Champs, and we took an enduro body off the wall that we later realized was cut out for an RC300 car, so Rich donated one of his race bodies, which is a dark brown and impossible to see in the dark. Oh well, they were ready. They only needed 10 minutes practice time to get the motor set, and they were ready to go. It looked like there were going to be 8 teams ready to go, with a great variety of cars: Associated, Delta, Thorpe, Serpent, and SG from Italy. It takes not only a fast driver, but a very patient and self-disciplined driver to do good in enduros. It's not how fast you go, but rather how long you go fast. Keeping the car on the track is the single most important thing, and yet it's the hardest thing to do. Maybe that's why it's so important. At exactly 9 a.m., the race was underway. Leo Barana, driving a 4-wheel drive SG car for the Competition Plus magazine team, jumped in the lead, with Larry McClendon driving a Serpent car for the CRP team following in second. Curtis Husting waited for everyone to leave, then he took off. Curtis has won enough enduros to know leading the first lap of a 10-hour enduro is not important. They were still starting Arturo's car at the start, so he left later. Within a few laps, Curtis had moved up to third, and in a few more laps he was running second. Art was starting to move up through the field. By the 5-minute mark, Curtis was in the lead, with Barana second and McClendon third. A couple of minutes later, Art moved into second, and when he got close to Curtis, Curtis moved over and let him go. After the pit stops, Curtis had the lead again, and a few minutes later, Art retook the lead. Then at 20 minutes, Art ran out of fuel. At the 35-minute mark, Art was first, Curtis second, and now John Thorpe had moved into third. 5 minutes later, just as Tom Wong started driving, the steering servo went out in the Delta car. It wasn't Tom's fault, but it was one of those unfortunate things you really hate to see. Bill Giannis took over the driving for Curtis, who had built up a 5-lap lead over Thorpe. Gary Keyes replaced Gil Losi Jr. in the Ranch Pit Shop RC 500 car. They were now in third place. The car wasn't running quite right, but they kept tweaking on it every pit stop, and it got better and better. A few minutes later, the Thorpe team had a problem, and the Ranch Pit Shop team was in second, with the Delta team back up to third. It looked like the race was going to be between the two team associated cars and the Team Delta car, but by the 3-hour mark, the Delta car was back in the pits, and the Thorpe team was back in third. For the next 6 hours, the positions stayed the same. Team Associated, with Rich Lee and Tony Neisiger taking their driving turns of going fast and keeping out of trouble, held down first place. Ron Paris and Gil Losi Sr. likewise kept the Ranch Pit Shop team in second, while Benny Bullock, Joe Jones, and Barry Newman were keeping the Thorpe car within 70 laps of the leaders. At the 8-hour mark, the first place team lost the clutch bearings and lost a few laps changing clutch bells, but they still had a 23-lap lead. Then the Delta team car, which was just about to move into third, was off the track again and dropped back to fifth. About this time, Carrie Cavazos came over and showed me her stopwatch. It read 4 hours, 36 minutes. I said, "Is that all the longer you've been running?" She said, "No, that's how long we've been in the pits." After working that long in the pits on a SG car, Robert Cavazos finally packed the car away and watched the race. 10 hours is even longer when you're not on the track. At the end of the 9th hour, Curtis Husting had a 15-lap lead when he turned the driving over to Tony Neisinger. Now it was dark and they were running under the lights. I had a very hard time even seeing the car on the back straightaway, so I don't know how Tony was able to get it around the track. I was standing next to Giannis and Bill said, "Tony's turning between 17.8 and 17.9 in the dark." I said, "That's probably a mistake. The scores probably pushed the buttons too soon because the fastest lap to that time was Arturo's 18.0. Then Bill turned to me so I could see his stopwatch, and he said he timed Tony. Meanwhile, the Ranch Pit Shop team was keeping the pressure on. Gary Keyes was turning some good times of his own, trying hard to catch up. But the race ended with the Associated team, who led for 9.5 hours, holding on to first place by just 16 laps over the Ranch Pit Shop team. It was a race right to the 10th hour mark. You guys did awesome. These guys make it look too easy. They've won so many Enduros that even 3 24-hour Enduros are on their list of accomplishments. Curtis Husting with Rich Lee holding the winning Associated RC 500 car featuring OPS motor and Airtronics radio. Bill Giannis and Tony Neisiger. Could you tell the race was sponsored by Budweiser? This team keeps getting closer and closer. They came within 14 laps. Gary Keyes, Gil Losi Jr., Ron Paris holding the RC 500 car and OPS motor he built, and Gil Losi Sr. Perhaps next year is their year. The Thorpe team of Benny Bullock, Joe Jones, Barry Newman, and John Thorpe took a well-deserved third place. Have you ever run 10 hours straight and turned 1,772 laps before, with half of them at night under poor visibility. You may want to ask some of the guys in this race, like Bob Novak and Andy Jacobson. They could probably describe the feeling better than I could. All I can say is 10 hours is a lot longer than 4 minutes or 8 minutes or 1 hour. And if you really think you're a macho driver and you can do it, then you might as well start with a 24-hour enduro and show the world how it's done. By the way, good luck. You'll need it. Our RC 500 ad shows Wally Bailey winning the English Nationals, Phil Booth also winning the Formula class in the English Nationals, Rick Davis winning the Roar US Nationals, Rick Davis winning the Oval US Nationals, Phil Booth winning the Saloon class in the English Nationals, and Phil Booth winning the Sports Car class in the English Nationals. The RC 500 car is the world leader. At the 1983 World Championships in Carnot, France, Ralph Birch Jr. was the top qualifier against all cars in the world. Ralph also won the 1983 Winter Nationals and the 1983 Roar Nationals. RC Modeler Magazine, November 1985. Two beautiful models. My article this month was on the 13th annual McCoy race at the Ranch Pit Shop. I want to thank Dick McCoy for sponsoring these annual races and for just being an all-around great guy. Thanks from all the racers, Dick. This was simply the biggest 1/8 gas race we've ever had. 160 entries from all over the USA, including Alaska, plus racers from Venezuela and Canada. Why did they all show up at this race? For a number of reasons. The McCoy race is always one of the 3 biggest races of the year, along with the Nationals and the Winter Champs. And Gil Losi Sr., the owner of the Ranch Pit Shop, has just redesigned a new track layout the week before this race, so the local racers would not have a home track advantage. And also, this would be the final big race before the upcoming World Championships in Japan. My son Curtis and I went to the track Wednesday afternoon for some practice, and when we arrived, it looks as if the racing had already started. The place was packed. Most of the out-of-town racers arrived on Monday and were all ready to race now. We had changed the original design of the 4-wheel drive cars we ran in Florida, and Curtis had one of the new cars, which was very similar to Dana Smeltzer's 4-wheel drive car. My new car wasn't ready yet, so I was using Rich Lee's 4-wheel drive car from Florida. Rich, Kais, Losi, and Giannis were busy trying to finish building their cars, while Birch had just finished building his with the help of Rich Lee. Oh yes, one other small item. A heat wave had just moved in, and for the next 5 days the temperature was between 100 and 105 degrees. But look at it this way. It was cooler than last year's McCoy race when it got up to 112 degrees. The cars were split into 2 classes, so there were 135 two-wheel drive cars and 25 cars in the 4-wheel drive class. There would be separate qualifying for the two-wheel drive cars and separate mains for both classes. There would be 3 rounds of qualifying on Friday and 3 more rounds on Saturday. In the two-wheel drive class, Gary Kais found the short way around the track first, turning 13 laps in 4 minutes and .01 seconds. Arturo Carbonell made his practice time pay off by leading the four-wheel drive cars with a time of 14.4.12. But in the next round, Dana Smeltzer lowered the time to 14.409. Rich Lee, Losi Jr., and Giannis finally got their cars together for the last qualifying day, but a lot of little bugs that appear with all new cars kept them from running close to their potential. Rich and Losi managed to make the A main, but Giannis never got one good run and ended up in the B main. Meanwhile, in the two-wheel drive class, Ralph Birch Jr. got a good run in and just barely beating Kai's time with a 13.4 flat. Ralph was running Ron Paris' spare car. In the final qualifying round, Rick Davis almost had top qualifying honors with 14.409, just 1/10 of a second short. We stayed after qualifying and spent some more time tuning Curtis's and Birch's car for Sunday, and they were both running very fast, so things were looking good. Sunday was main event day. Everyone got to run in the main. Losi even had Group W cable with 4 TV cameras recording all the races. Two-wheel drive A main. It was standing room only crowd around the track when this race was ready to start. The drivers were introduced, the cars lined up, the horn sounded, and the 40-minute main was underway. Gary Kais jumped in the lead with Ruben Serrano and Ron Paris giving chase. Ralph Birch Jr. got hit at the start, spun around, and stuck in the boards, starting dead last. Kais was top qualifier, and he was using his normal driving style, which is to cut the corners as tight as possible and make no mistakes. This he was doing and pulling further ahead. Ron Paris started getting hand cramps and started falling back. Butch Klober moved in on Serrano and passed him to take over second. Four-wheel drive A main. Time for the faster cars. The drivers were introduced again, cars lined up, horn sounded, and Curtis Husting took off in the lead. Within 4 minutes he had over a straightaway lead. Then they stopped the race because a battery went dead in the computer. Can you believe that? But that was the only computer malfunction in 3 days. Curtis obviously wasn't too happy, but I told him not to worry because the way he was running, he'd get the lead again. At the restart, Arturo Carbonell got the lead with Rick Davis second, Curtis third, and Dana Smeltzer fourth. Within 2 laps, Rick moved over and let Curtis go by. It took Curtis 3 more minutes to get by Art. Then he was pulling away from the field again. Meanwhile, Rick let Dana go by, and a few minutes later, Dana also got by Art to take over second. At about 10 minutes, Curtis was pulling away from Dana, who was pulling away from Art, when Art hit the carousel wall and lost a dog bone and headed for the pits for repairs. Ralph Birch Jr. was in and out of the pits a number of times, trying to figure out what was wrong. Then they found a loose belt idler pulley. At the 20-minute mark, Curtis had a comfortable lead, with Dana in second and Rick Davis in third, about half a lap back. Curtis lapped me right at the start of the straightaway. I was in 4th place, and we went down the straightaway together, but as soon as we got to the corner, he was gone. A couple laps later, Curtis also hit a dot. The car tumbled, and he broke a shock mounting pin and was out. Dana now had the lead, with Rick second and myself third. When Rick lapped me, I could stay with him about 2 to 3 laps before he slowly pulled away. As I pulled out of the pits after refueling, I pulled right behind Dana and sat on his bumper for 5 laps before he pitted, so I knew Rick was running faster. What happened was Dana had decided on starting on slightly smaller tires, which made his car a little better at the start, but now they were getting too small and his handling was going away. With 2 laps to go, Rick was right behind Dana, and Dana pushed a little too hard, spun out, and Rick went by to take the win, with Dana second and myself third. We're getting ready to present the trophies. All you guys did awesome to make the main. Congratulations to all of you. Ralph Birch Jr. borrowed Ron Paris's backup RC500 car and took top qualifier honors in the 2-wheel drive class. This is the 3rd McCoy race that Gary Kise has won. His RC500 features OPS motor and Airtronics radio. Congratulations, Gary. Second place went to Butch Klober from Phoenix with his Rossi-powered RC500 car. Butch is not only a great racer, he's a really great guy too. Congratulations, Butch. Gil Ossie Jr. dropped to 3rd place when he ran out of fuel in his Rossi-powered RC500 car. Congratulations, Gil. All you guys did awesome to make the main. Congratulations to all of you. Rick Davis from Detroit drove a smart, patient race to win the 4-wheel drive class with his OPS-powered RC500 car featuring Airtronics radio. Congratulations, Rick. Dana Smeltzer was the top qualifier in the 4-wheel drive class, but ran out of tires in the main and finished second with his Rossi-powered RC500 with Airtronics radio. Congratulations, Dana. I guess it was my turn to take 3rd place again. My RC500 features OPS motor and Airtronics radio. First in class again. Feels great. A great deal of thanks must go to Dick McCoy for sponsoring 13 of these races, to Gil Ossie Sr. and the Ranch Pit Shop crew for designing the best track in the country, and to Larry Stancliffe and crew for running the biggest 1/8 gas race ever. Thanks to all you guys. RC Racing News is a monthly publication by Lou Peralta, who actually used to race in the real buggies in the Baja 1000 races in Mexico. Lou does a section called Race Corner, which highlights different happenings in our hobby. For this issue, he called me and asked what's happening with the RC10 kits. Where are they? My reply is printed over on the upper right-hand outlined spot. Speaking of complaints, just talked to Gene Husting of Associated, and he says that he really apologizes to RCers, distributors, dealers, etc. Their RC10 off-road kit is selling at a much faster rate than they had ever anticipated. Consequently, the first 5,000 kits that they produced went faster than a basket of biscuits at a boarding house dinner table. They are trying to meet all the orders, but unfortunately the demand is greater than their capability to produce the kit and parts. He has assured us that by the beginning of summer, all the back orders will be filled, and hopefully they'll be up to date with their orders. Such problems. I wish I had. That's what happens when you've got a good product. Actually, I didn't know it at that time, but it was about 4 years before we caught up. It seems that the more we shipped, the more they wanted. Off-road racing was growing very fast. The 1985 Roar Off-Road Nationals was held in Grapevine, Texas. The track was large, with a good layout. The track was well manicured and sprinkled periodically to keep the dust down. Our congratulations to the winner of the production class, Larry Pryor, on the left, who also TQ'd, and to the very happy Gay Sullivan in the middle, who took second, both with RC10s, and to Jeff Ball in third with his Bolink car. The racing was close and exciting. Ron Dyer on the left TQ'd and won the stock class with his Cox car, while Mike Geem in the middle finished second with his Cox car, and Caton Cobb finished third with his RC10. Ralph Birch Jr. and Troy Moore are trying to figure out this off-road racing where the cars go flying through the air, something gas racers don't want to see. They're learning quite quick though. By the shape of these plaques, you might think this race was in Texas. Ron Dyer on the left won the race with his Cox car, while Ron Rossetti in the middle took second with his RC10, and that quick learner, Ralph Birch Jr. from Denton, Texas, was third. You always want to be in the front of the pack, so you don't get run over. And of course, if you want to win. That old cowboy from Southern California, Eustace Moore, won the four-wheel drive class with his RC10 MIP car. This is a car that Eustace makes and sells, which he has turned the RC10 into a four-wheel drive car. Good thinking, Eustace. Jerry Case in the middle finished second with his Yokomo car, and Glenn Glass took third, also with a Yokomo. Congratulations to all the racers here. RC Modeler Magazine, December 1985. It looks like Santa has replaced his reindeers with some kind of new flying contraption. My article this month was on the first ever 1/10 Off-Road IFMAR World Championships. This was the first IFMAR-sanctioned 1/10 scale off-road world championships. IFMAR has sanctioned many 1/8 gas and 1/12 electric world championships since 1977. 1/10 off-road has finally grown to the point worldwide where it was now possible to stage a true 1/10 World Championships event. IFMAR, the International Federation of Model Auto Racing, is composed of ROAR, USA, EFRA, Europe, and FEMCA, the Far East, RC car associations. ROAR made a bid to hold this race and was voted approval to do so by IFMAR. Gil Losi Sr. volunteered to hold the race at the Ranch Pit Shop Track number 2 in Del Mar, California. Del Mar is about 100 miles south of Los Angeles and was an ideal summer location. It's about 1 mile from the ocean with temperatures during race week from 80 degrees to 88. The preparation and design of the track was among the best you'll find. With the fantastic sponsorship from Sanyo Batteries and co-sponsorship from CRP and Airtronics, we were ready to begin a full week of racing. There would be 2 classes of racing with 2-wheel drive cars, stock motors and 6-cell battery packs first, followed by 4-wheel cars with modified motors and 7-cell packs. Every racer would get 8 qualifiers in both classes. The heavy favorite in the 2-wheel drive class would have to be Jay Halsey. Jay won 3 ROAR National Championships and numerous ORCA Championships, but it wouldn't be easy. The overwhelming favorite in the 4-wheel drive class could only be Gil Losi Jr. Gil has been winning about 95% of the 4-wheel drive races he runs in, but he does get pressure from Chris Alec and Eustace Moore. There were also over 20 drivers from overseas, all champions in their own countries, who had their own ideas on who should win this race. About 3 weeks earlier, there was a warm-up race for the Worlds, and Eric Soderquist, with his RC10, was simply untouchable. His car looked like it was glued to the ground compared to our better drivers. So I went over and talked to Eric and looked at his car. The diff gearbox assembly was as smooth as silk. It was beautiful. So I asked Eric what he had done, and he said he had spent a lot of time freeing up the parts. So I checked his springs and shocks and said thank you and left. I told the rest of our A-team that they should also go look at Eric's diff and gearbox and shocks. The next week at work, I took the time to build 6 gearboxes and 6 sets of shocks with springs. What prompted me to do this was that Tony Neisiger only finished in the C main at this warm-up race. I felt he and a couple other guys could use some help too. These 2 racers from Japan did something I'd never seen at a World Championship event before or since. They switched their brand of cars. They both went to the pit shop store and bought 2 new RC10s and immediately went 2 laps faster. Unbelievable. They told their friends, and within 10 minutes the shop sold their last 10 RC10s. There were a lot of racers from Japan here. As the stock class qualifying began, Chris Moore led things off by turning 19 laps in 5 minutes and 7 seconds, followed by Tony Neisiger in 19.509.2. Imagine that. What a surprise. It looks like it was working. In the afternoon, Chris Moore turned 20.516, followed by Tony Neisiger with 20.513. Jay Halsey just missed with 19.5 flat. Then Gil Losi Jr. served notice that the top qualifier honors belonged to him by turning 3 20-lap heats in a row, now with a best of 20.508, installing him as a favorite to win the mains. Yesterday, Gil had his car set up like he ran it at the Roar Nationals in Texas, which was a loose dirt track. So last night he changed it to what he thought would work on this track, and he was certainly correct. Eric Grisham, Gary Keyes, and Mike Dunn also turned 20 laps. The big surprise was Jay Halsey, who was stuck in the 19-lap bracket. But Jay, with his dad Jim, worked on the car trying new setups in the open practice session that evening, and they felt they were ready now. Jim and Jay are team number one. They're the ones to beat. The motor wizard, Mike Reedy, was busy all day and all night helping the racers. The stock two-wheel drive A main. The stock class world champion would be determined by 3 races with the best 2 out of 3 counting. This is certainly an ideal way. The 3 mains were interspersed between the lower mains with about 1 hour between mains. The changes that Jay and Jim made on the car certainly worked, as Jay turned 20.514 to win the first main. Mike Geem followed in 19.500. Chris Moore turned third at 19.504, but with 2 more mains, anything could happen. In the second main, Jay shot away to another win with a faster 20.506, but this time Gil Losi Jr. followed with another 20.512. Tony Neisiger finished third, 19.502. Going to the final main, Jay had the edge with his 2 20-lap mains, but Gil still had a chance to win the overall. Jay obviously knew this because he took off in the lead again in the third main. Jay led the whole race, again turning another 20.508. Gil followed with a 20.512, and Tony took third with another 20.515. By winning all 3 mains, Jay was taking all the guesswork out of it, making it easy to pick the first 1/10 off-road world champion, Jay Halsey. Following in second place overall was Gil Losi Jr., and in third, Tony Neisinger. Congratulations, guys, you did awesome. Roger Curtis was helping Jam and Jay with a 4-wheel drive conversion of our RC10 car. I don't know whose actual car it was. It could have come from Japan. It had never been run, and Jim installed the radio at the track. The first time it was on the track was in the open practice session after the 2-wheel drive finals. We had a few problems, like it didn't have enough steering, and it would only run 3.5 minutes. In a 5-minute race, this is not too good. There was a little more work that needed to be done. This is Roger's wife, Lisa, wearing a very fast cap, shaped like the Pennzoil Indy car, and is aerodynamically correct. The brim is shaped like the front wing. Cool. On the left is Wayne Campbell, the head of our shipping department, who does an A1 job, and he also is Santa Claus at Christmas time for the kids too. My wife Midge is decked out in all the associated approved attire. Way to go. This was the most used t-shirt by the racers at that time. And thank you, Jerry Thompson, for the design. In the qualifying rounds, Gil Losi Jr. showed the world he was the man to beat with his 4-wheel drive Yokomo car. Gil came to win, and he was ready. In his first round, he turned 21.507. To back that up, he turned 21 laps in all 8 of his qualifying rounds. The best anyone else did were 2 21-lap runs, and it only took 1 20-lap run to make the A main. He was a man to beat. But the unexpected was about to happen. Jay Halsey was starting to get used to driving his new 4-wheel drive car, and Jim Halsey, with Roger Curtis helping, was getting more and more of the bugs out of the car. In the 5th round, Jay put it all together to take over top spot with 21.507. In the 7th round, Gil turned an identical 21.507. Thank God for the A&B electronic counting system being used. Jay and Gil had identical times, but Gil had the better backup time and so won the top qualifier honors. The mains promised to be exciting. I don't want to make it sound like it was only between these 2 cars, because an eyelash behind, all at 21.508, was Eric Soderquist, Mike Dunn, and Chris Alec. 5 cars 1 second apart. Unbelievable. In the first main, Gil won wire to wire on a perfect run, turning 21.503. Jay got hammered at the start and had to play catch-up. Mike Geen took second with 21.507, with third going to Gary Keyes at 21.511. In the second main, Gil had the lead with Jay close behind in second. Halfway through the race, it appeared Gil had a radio glitch and went clear over the bank off the track. Jay went on to win with Paul Dion second and Chris Alec third. Going to the last main, 7 drivers still had a chance to win overall, so everything depended on this race. Gil got a good start and started to open up a lead. Jay was in second, but not going fast enough to overtake Gil. Then Gil spun out, coming down after a jump, and Jay closed up to Gil's bumper. A couple laps later, Gil went a little too wide and Jay went by to take the lead. They were both going about the same speed. Then Jay came up on traffic, got held up, and Gil slipped by to take the lead back, and then the checkered flag, just 1.5 seconds ahead of Jay. Chris Alec followed in third. Gil had the 2 best finishes and won the 4-wheel drive World Championships. Congratulations again to Gil and to all the racers for some truly fantastic driving. Congratulations to all you guys. You are the top 10 racers in the world. Jammin' Jay Halsey becomes the first ever IFMAR 1/10 off-road 2-wheel drive world champion. Congratulations, Jay. There was no question, you were number 1. Jay's RC10 is box stock, just as it comes out of the box, featuring Sanyo batteries, Novak radio, and speed control with Futaba steering servo. On the left, Jammin' Jay Halsey, world champion, with his RC10, and Gil Losi Jr. with a close second place with his RC10, and a surprising Tony Neisiger with an unbelievable third place finish with his RC10. You guys are the best in the world. While trophies were being handed out, Randy Tenchert ran away with the Concourse Trophy with this beautiful Budweiser off-road car. Congratulations to all you guys. You are the top 10 racers in the world. Gil Losi Jr. on the left and Jammin' Jay Halsey had one exciting 4-wheel drive event with Gil just speeding out Jay for the win, with Jay a close second place and Paul Dion from Canada in third. Congratulations, you guys were the best of the best. Losey's winning four-wheel drive Yokomo car features Sanyo batteries, Airtronics radio, Novak speed control, and Trinity motor. This is an article in a magazine on Jay's winning RC10 car. You earned this, Jay. The cover of Radio Control Technique shows Jay's second place finishing RC10 four-wheel drive car. It was a close one, Jay. Almost. This is Chris Chan's ad on the Worlds. It kind of says it all.